January's church theme is intention. And I confess that after Christmas Eve's 4 worship service marathon, I intentionally wanted to drop out of the world for a week. Now, Cindy and I usually go away on a meditation retreat for New Year's, but it had been canceled due to a family emergency. So I decided to do something I've never done before in my life: get lost in a really good video game. I'm not actually a gamer. This was something new, but I just wanted to be a gamer for a week. So, of course, this took a day of research. And after spending Christmas Day reading reviews and watching trailers — they have trailers for video games now — I decided on a game called Elite Dangerous Horizons. It's based on a game called Elite from 1986 that I do remember playing on a floppy disk way back, or trying out way back when. It's come a long way. First, the same company took actual star maps of the entire Milky Way galaxy and then extrapolated, using current theories of light travel and quantum physics, what space travel in our galaxy might look like. As an amateur astronomy aficionado, I was traveling to places that I'd only seen before in my telescope. Alpha Centauri, Betelgeuse, so forth. And a lot of the game's appeal for me is the time it takes you to get places in the game. Space is vast, and you literally have to sit there while the program's flight models negotiates gravity. If you get too close to stars, it slows you down. String theory models and physics are all working as you zoom past stars and such. You can travel faster than light and jump through wormholes, but there are rules based on theoretical astrophysics, which are kind of fun to watch. Planets are spawned in the compositional proportion that science believes they exist, and you can actually fly out to nebulas, but it'll take you hours to do so. So there was my meditation. If this is starting to sound a little like an episode of The Big Bang Theory, it gets a little worse. Instead of starting off with some simple game, I unwittingly discovered I had jumped into what's called an MMORPG. Few chuckles. It's a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. So at any one time, thousands of people are online around the world playing this game, exploring, pirating, mining, trading goods, building societies. There's no limits to where you can do or what you do. You get a ship and you just off you go. You figure out stuff. And no, it's not all 14-year-olds online. I checked. The demographics are surprisingly spread fairly evenly among millennials and Gen Xers. That is, from about 53 down to 14. Now, where this fits in with my topic this morning of empire and the celebration of Epiphany is the underlying tensions within this game, the expansion of empire. Here I was trying to escape the news of warmongering and empire building, and I fell right into the middle of a fantasy empire building game. Whether you're trading in the game, building a profitable route, or pirating that route, or a relief ship evacuating refugees, or an imperial cutter destroying a rebel base, it all revolves around, I realized after a couple days, about the idea of building or resisting empire. And there it was again, real life. You try to escape, and it's going to slap right back on you. The idea of American empire has been underneath so many of the tensions that we've struggled with the past year or two. And Epiphany, the celebration of Epiphany, is all about empire. It's about the struggle between Herod and this rebel Jesus. It's really the whole Luke story. We'll get to that in a minute. But so many of the struggles that we're dealing with right now: expansion versus contraction of military power, expansion versus contraction of American influence around the world. We've struggled with this all mightily, but the fact is we're fascinated with empire. PBS is currently airing The Crown. How many of you are watching that lately? It details the end of the British Empire. On another channel this week, Victoria, the show, chronicles the end of British colonialism, which was the beginning of the end of British Empire. Think even of our fascination with Star Wars, which is playing right now a few blocks from here. Bad empire versus good resistance to empire. Although, as everyone knows who's followed the Star Wars saga, as soon as the good become powerful, it spawns another cycle of corruption and downfall. No parallels to the American experience there, is there? As an aside, at least this latest Star Wars installment finally moves the franchise beyond merely including a few young, powerful female characters to exploring what a feminist ethic of victory might emerge when, quite literally, the heartthrob flyboy is cut out of the loop of power and the command carrier's bridge is staffed with women of all ages in charge. It's worth seeing. Actress Laura Dern's character of Vice Admiral Holdo teaches a mean lesson in alternate heroisms to the dashing and impulsive Poe. But I do digress there. What does all this talk of empire have to do with the celebration of Epiphany? Everything. The 12 days of Epiphany, from Christmas until just a few hours ago, tells the story of the three magi, or the wise men, who bring the baby Jesus gifts of gold and incense and precious oils, none of which a baby really needs, but it's a good story. And these are things of value. It's good to note that the story of the Magi is told in Matthew, which is an alternate account to the nativity story told in the Gospel of Luke. It's the Lucan story where Jesus is nestled in the manger, surrounded by cute animals and adored by shepherds in the field. These stories all get mashed up, the shepherds and the Magi, Herod the king and Augustus the emperor. But each gospel tells a very different story politically that gets blended together for the familiar Christmas church pageant that you're all familiar with. And in fact, only 2 of the 4 gospels tell the birth story. In Mark, we hear Jesus is coming and then he's there. And in John, there's a whole bunch of stuff about light and parallels to Genesis, but nothing about sheep or kings. It's in the Gospel of Luke that we find the 3 magi. There isn't even a manger or a barn or animals. Instead, when the magi get to Bethlehem, they go into a house, we're told. And there they see the Mary and the child, and they kneel and pay homage. The Lucan story is focused on the relationship between Herod, representing empire, and Jesus, which is the resistance to empire that offers the world hope and love. It is a story of resisting the empire. The Magi are caught in the middle of this tension. They meet with Herod, the king. They tell him, we're going to follow this star. Herod feigns benevolent interest, but actually fears that Jesus is the Messiah foretold in the Hebrew scriptures. Herod represents the corruptions of empire. He is the Jewish king, authorized to rule by his Roman overlords, and he will do anything to maintain power. Nothing familiar to us, is there, in that? And historically, Herod was a tyrant. Biblical scholar Richard Horsley writes in The Liberation of Christmas that quite apart from any particular incident that may underlie it, the story portrays a network of historical relationships that prevailed in the general circumstance around the birth of Jesus. Horsley describes how Herod oppressed his own people with taxes to fund his grandiose building projects, including a rebuilt temple that exceeded Solomon's. In fact, in our Bible study class last month, we put the 2 side by side, and Herod's was huge compared to even the height of the Israel monarchy. Herod instituted what would today be called a police state, complete with loyalty oaths, surveillance, informers, secret police, imprisonment, torture, and brutal retaliation against any serious dissent. Matthew 2 comes to life vividly against the background of Herodian exploitation and tyranny. You can almost hear Herod say, I did it all for you, to rebuild the temple, to keep us safe, to prevent North Korea, Rome, from killing us all, to bring jobs home and increase economic prosperity, to make Israel great again. Now it's sounding a little familiar. It isn't that the story of Epiphany has echoes to which we should pay attention. It is the story of today. It is the age-old story repeated again and again of resistance in the context of fear, of hope in the atmosphere of oppression, of love winning against hate. Now the work of Christmas begins, writes Howard Thurman. Those angels have simmered down, the star's gone, the tree has been removed. It is the season of Epiphany in which it is up to us to find the lost and heal the brokenhearted, to feed the hungry and free the prisoner, to rebuild this nation and to bring to this world peace. And so as we light our annual burning bowl, each year we consider something that each of us chooses not to bring into this new year. And each year we put a little new twist on what we might throw into that fire. We write that thing on a piece of paper, cast it into the flames, let it be consumed. We write only on the scrap of special Chinese temple burning paper that we were handed so as not to create more fire than was anticipated. We write the words burn and we leave them behind. This year, I invite you to consider something about empire when you choose your few words. Maybe it has something to do with your distant role in the oppression of others. Maybe it is the hate for hatred you leave behind so you can focus on the love that saves. I know a lot of us have been maybe hung up on our feelings, and to get over those feelings, maybe we'll just leave them behind this new year and get onto the work that needs to be done, if we're ready. Maybe it's a regret from last year that holds you back from the good intentions of this one. Whatever your words, write them down. Let's cast them into the fire together. Let us leave them behind together. Come forward when you're ready.